All right, let's look at an example now. Our first example is the word engine. So just think about engine. When you think about engine, what's the first thing that comes to mind? What would the core meaning of it be? Well, to me, it would be like a car engine, right? Like or a lawnmower engine, right? The device in some kind of vehicle or machine that converts energy into mechanical force, right? Like a car engine. Now, I'm getting this basic meaning as is indicated on the outline from the American Heritage Dictionary, right? So I use the American Heritage Dictionary online, but of course you could look at other dictionaries as well. And when you do your semantic analysis, you will have to use dictionaries in order to do the work. Though you can also just think about what meanings this word has as you've encountered it. So in any case, the word engine seems to have this core meaning of like a car engine. But notice you can learn this from the dictionary. This information comes from the dictionary that's on the outline. Engine has a variety of what we could call subsidiary or extended meanings of the word engine. So for example, engine can come to mean any kind of mechanical device, not just the engine in a car or a lawnmower, but any kind of mechanical device. There's a phrase, the engines of war, which basically means all the different kinds of machines or mechanical devices that you might use in war. So notice that this is an example of generalization. It's not just car engines, but any kind of mechanical device can be referred to with the word engine. Secondly, engine can come to mean any kind of agent or means of accomplishment, not just a mechanical device, but anything that kind of accomplishes something or brings it about. So for example, we can talk about an engine of economic growth, right? Like say the housing market is an engine of economic growth. So what we're saying is that building houses kind of drives economic growth. Now notice, this is not any kind of mechanical device at all. So I would suggest that what we have here is a metaphor. In order to talk about the economy and economic development, that's a difficult abstract subject to talk about. And so a nice way to kind of clarify difficult concepts like this is to draw on some source, some other domain or source, and use words or ideas from that other source to try to talk about and clarify this some kind of concept, say in economics. And so this is a metaphor. We draw from the idea of engines, mechanical devices, in order to talk about things happening in the economy. So that's another subsidiary meaning of engine. Or here's another one. Sometimes we talk about the first car of a train as the engine, or we talk about a fire engine. And notice in these cases, we're using the word engine to refer to the whole vehicle. We're not just talking about the device under the hood that creates energy, but we're talking about the whole vehicle. So this is an example of metonymy that we talked about before, using a part, we're using the name for the part, but now we're actually that name for the part has jumped to the whole. And then one last use of engine. Engines the word engine is used in the context of computers, right? We talk about a search engine. Now, of course, the search engine in a computer is nothing like a car engine. It's not some kind of mechanical device. It's more like an algorithm or something like that. Again, it's something very abstract and difficult to comprehend, and it's kind of inside that computer, or not even inside the computer. It's some kind of software. But we want to try to be able to talk about what this algorithm or whatever it is does. And so what do? We draw on language from some other thing that's more familiar, like engines and cars, and we use that to talk about something that's in a computer. So this is another metaphor in this case, clearly a metaphor where in order to talk about computers, we're drawing on language and ideas from some other domain, the domain of cars and mechanical devices. So a metaphor. All right, so notice what I've done. I've taken the first approach here to the word engine. I looked up the core meaning, or kind of thought about what the basic core non-figurative meaning of engine is, and then I explored some other uses of engine and tried to analyze, okay, what has happened? How has the meaning shifted so that the word engine could be used in those ways, so that it could have those other meanings? Now we're going to take the other approach. What if we go back to the beginning of the word engine, to the history of the word engine, and see what its meaning is and how it developed? We're actually going to get a very different idea of what engine means, a very different picture or portrait of the word engine. So if we look at its origins, the word engine comes from the Latin word ingenium, which actually means inborn qualities or talent. The gen part means to be born, and it's an element that we're going to learn later on when we get to Latin. But notice that this is a very different meaning than our core meaning of engine, right? Because, of course, for us, an engine is something that's metal and mechanical, but ingenium is something that's natural and biological. It's some inborn quality or talent. We still see this idea in, say, in the word ingenious. If you're ingenious, it means you have some kind of natural ability and talent and intelligence. Okay, so that's the original meaning, ingenium, inborn quality. And this Latin word ingenium came into French, into an old form of French, and it still had basically the same meaning. It meant innate or inborn ability. And again, I'm getting this information from the American Heritage Dictionary. And of course, most large dictionaries, they will have etymological information like this for you, and you'll have to use resources like this when you're researching your word. So in any case, engine came to Old French. And then we're going to learn how this happened later, but words from Old French, lots of words from Old French came into English at a certain time in history. And of course, English started spelling the word differently. English spelled it differently so that it looks more like our word engine. And notice that English also gave the word a new meaning. In English, engine, or in Middle English, engine meant skill, which is still an inborn, which is still an ability that's inside you. So it's not necessarily inborn, right? You learn skills too. They're not necessarily innate. So it's a little bit different. And secondly, in Middle English, it came to mean machine. And so here's a case where some kind of metaphor is occurring, right? Because in Middle English, they decided to draw on the idea of and some kind of internal natural ability that you might have, or even a skill that's not natural, that's in a person, say, and to use that idea or language from that to talk about non-natural devices like machines that can do things, right? So somehow there's a connection, and it's somehow useful to talk about machines in this way by using the word engine. But originally, the origin of the word is that it's something more natural and biological. So it's only by a metaphor. Now, when you look at the online etymological dictionary, it actually tells you that our sense of engine, our kind of core sense, the idea that it's some kind of device that converts energy to mechanical power, only develops in the 18th century. So this is after the Middle English period. And so this core meaning is something that's, relatively recent compared to when you look at the long history of this word. So this is a word that's really lost its original meaning, having to do with inborn qualities, and now it has this really brand new, in a sense, brand new kind of meaning that has developed because of metaphor.